Welcome to Shut Up and Sit. I'm Yedda a consciousness coach and consultant. I'm on a mission to bring mindfulness to the modern world. Each week, we will offer ancient healing practices, real-world examples, and the latest research in neurobiology and behavior change into fun conversation that invites you to wake up your highest self. Now, let's go shut up and sit. Welcome to the show, everybody. Yedda back here with you. And as always, I'm so excited. And as always, I tell you, I'm even more excited for this episode than ever. But it really is true this time because this week joining me on the show is my bestie, is my backup ride or die, because you know my son's my ride or die, and my stunt double, my body double, my other side of myself, my psychologically healthy version of me. So welcome to the show, Erin Parker. Seriously, y'all, she's my bestie, my best friend. So Erin, how's it going?
It's going really well.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad you're excited because you normally don't like to be thrown into shit where you're just like, we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants. And I was like,
that's true.
Yeah. I was like, so, hey, why don't you just like hop on down to the show on Monday? This was what, Friday? And you were like, okay.
Well, you said Wednesday and I said, well, that's not going to work for me, but I can come Monday.
So whatever day it is, wherever you're listening. And so today for us, it's Monday, but I did just throw this off spur of the moment last week on Erin, but we've been friends for, gosh, how long now?
20.
Yeah, it's been, I think, 20 or 21 years. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and we've had a lot of fun together.
We have.
Yeah, and so I figured, so, you know, as I was thinking about creating the show, and so Erin's a part of everything all the time. Erin hears it all. She walks me through it all. She's, you know, best friend, confidant, therapist. You know, it all goes in the list of what you do for me, with me in my life. But she's been along the ride almost as long as the rest of the folks who've been on the show. And so she's kind of heard this process, this idea of this book, this idea of the show. She's heard all my ideas. And so when I said, hey, I want you to come down and be on the podcast, she knows I'm always kind of like by the seat of my pants. Right? I like that little surge of, but I also hang out with people who keep me really grounded and sane. Right. Because if I don't, if you were like me, we'd be in real trouble.
That's very true.
So she's been along for the ride the whole time. And not only has she been a friend, and our boys, we both have boys who are the same age that have grown up together. And we've been in lots of work ideas together. You'll hear all about Erin's story. But when she heard about this idea for the podcast, I knew I was going to invite you on the show. But I also knew I couldn't give you too much time to think about it because, you know, that's the way it works with you. Once you kind of get in there, you come alive.
Right.
So is this the first time you've ever been on a podcast?
This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast.
Y'all, she's doing great, isn't she? See, look at this. You're not a puddle on the floor. You're still with me.
No, I'm fine.
So I really wanted you to come on not only because we've been friends for so long, you've also done the work. You've read the Shut Up and Sit book. You've watched the Shut Up and Sit journey that I've been on.
I have.
And you have, though, some really cool skill sets of your own. So before we jump into kind of where we're at, and I know today you guys were talking about the 8 tools for healthy self-expression, which probably honestly was the only section of the book I could actually say, Erin should come talk about that. Because you already know how to do this. I had to learn how to do it. So tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, where you can start wherever you want. I mean, we got time. I'm not going anywhere. We didn't bring wine, though. I know that's kind of our usual thing, but it is 12:30 on a Monday. So I mean, we could justify it. We could send Robin around the corner, but we probably should do this a little bit sober.
Yeah.
So, so tell us a little bit about who Erin is.
Well, I'm a wife, a mom, somebody that really loves being out in nature. I love cooking and feeding people really yummy food, nurturing. Yeah, I'm very nurturing.
You're a great cook.
I'm a nurturer. I love yoga and walking and reading and creating.
So my question for you, when you were growing up, and I know this because I know Erin's mom, I call your mom and dad Graham and Papa Moon.
Yep.
So I know this because Graham has told me lots of stories when you were a kid. of what it was like when you were in school. And I remember once, several years ago, telling your mom, I said, I was the kid in the hall, the Jehovah's Witness. And, Graham's heard the story. You guys, if you've read in the book, if you haven't gotten there yet, it's in the story, or it's in the book. And your mom said something really cool. And she goes, well, that's why you and Erin are friends, because she would always go out in the hall and be friends with the kids that got put out in the hall that were Jehovah's Witness. And I was like, no shit, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just thought it was terrible that they had to go outside and be in the hall. Like, oh, we're going to sing a Christmas song, so they have to go sit outside by themselves? That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to do to a child.
Right. And so this has been in your DNA your whole life, is my point. So, the nurturing piece of who you are and learning kind of your story. But even as a kid, you were the kid that, I was the one out there smashing the Easter eggs, flipping everybody the middle finger, and you're like, oh, poor Yedda, this really sucks. It's awful for her.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that we're friends, because you are so compassionate and empathetic and very good at nurturing people.
That's true.
And it would make sense that when you were growing up and you then went to college, what did you study?
Psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, psychology.
Yeah. And so that's given you the ability, I think, to talk really, like, I don't even need to do the show today, guys. I could just let Erin tell you. You don't need a book. You don't even need a list of 8, because Erin's going to tell you there's a lot more than 8. But the tools for healthy self-expression, I mean, ever since we met, the very first time we met, I remember thinking, she was really cool. I'd like to hang out with her more, because there was no drama. Like, there's never no drama. The drama doesn't exist for you. Actually, I think you go the opposite direction sometimes when drama comes in.
I do.
Unless I hold you hostage to it.
Well, I was going to say I do, but I mean, there's drama around, but I just don't dive into it. But
yeah. And why do you think that is?
Well, because I think that it's a waste of time and energy.
Yeah.
I think that for me, it's very, it just takes me out of balance, and I'm very empathetic. So I just absorb all the different energy. And so I just intuitively know I need to stay away from that. Because it's going to wreck my world.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And you do a really good job of taking care of yourself on the inside.
Yeah.
So this inner world that you have always been in your own human story, and as you went through the work in the book, but your own human story, part of that was your upbringing. I mean, your parents are amazing.
They are.
I love Graham and Papa Moon. I go hang out. Actually, I hung out with your mom this weekend. I don't know if you knew that. Whenever, she's the best. I mean, both your parents are. And so to have that as a natural upbringing for you was a great foundation. Mm-hmm. And, and I know we all have our own stories, but that doesn't mean just because you had a phenomenal, kind of foundation of healthy self-expression at home that you didn't have some trials and tribulations as you were growing up and kind of coming out into the adult world and figuring it all out. And that's kind of one of the connections that we have.
Sure.
You went to high school with my ex-husband.
Yep.
And so dyslexia was something that, not only he struggled with, but because you guys were in the same school, you struggled with that.
Yep.
And so I'm curious, as you think about being what I would consider an outlier, or somebody who probably didn't fit into a lot of social norms, and then who was really empathetic to people who didn't fit into social norms. What do you think was one of the things that helped you to survive through just being in some of those kind of outlier experiences in your life? She doesn't know any of the questions I'm asking you guys. And I'm aware that at some point she's going to turn beet red and look at me and be like, why are you doing this to me? It's just like we're hanging out on the back porch, Erin.
Yeah.
Robin, could you go get a bottle of wine?
Well, okay. I think having a really strong family was very helpful, for sure. I have some very close friends, some life friends that knew me really well. And I think, I don't know. I think that I just kept, if I just felt like I was too out of control, or just feeling like I wasn't connected to myself, there was just something inside of me that made me kind of wake up a little bit and start to bring, like, I got to figure out where am I, what am I doing that's not aligning with where I know that I need to be. I think it's just like an internal thing for me.
Well, and I love that. I didn't know that that's what you were going to say. And I'm like, wow, it was a great lead in for what we're talking about. So you've naturally, I would say, always been somebody that was in tune to that inner wisdom, that inner knowing.
Yeah.
And I can think about that over the years that I would come to you and be like, can you believe in that son of a, and I can't, and she, and Erin would just sit there, this wise, knowing, literally, I'm going to say sage, but her middle daughter is named Sage, which would make sense. But this kind of, all-knowing sage who literally would just, you could hold space for all of that. And I remember thinking, and how many years have we talked about, like, how do you not do this? And you've watched the full shit show, right? Literally, you've had the front row seat with the popcorn.
I mean, there is some drama.
I mean, actually, and I have to add this as a little segue. I met a woman this weekend, and she came up and was talking about the podcast. And you guys know what she said to me? She goes, I mean, it's all made up, right?
It's not made up.
It's all real. When I thought to myself, holy cow, do people think I'm making this up to entertain people? What the fuck? No, this is not made up. I wish that I could be that creative.
Right.
So I told her, I go, no, sweetheart. I'm like, and then one of the other women that was the social event this weekend, because, people are coming out now, and she goes, well, I mean, do you prepare? Obviously you prepare. I'm like, I got nothing for you, lady. I just show up and open my mouth and it works. I don't know, maybe it doesn't. So we're here today, and I have no idea where we're going with this, but that's a great lead in, because you've always had that ability to just be presence, right? And to know that knowingness. And so I can remember now the years I look back on all the conversations we've had, and we've had a lot. And you've just always had that. And I was the one like running around crazy, like, well, how do you do that? How do you do? And so these bundles of patterns, and you've literally seen the entire evolution of 20 years of all of this come to light, the divorce, the going deep, the disappearing, the reemergence, and even still kind of like riding a bicycle, trying to figure it all out, to show up with literally having to research, how do you show up with healthy self-expression?
Right. And
you've been my sounding board over the years, because now I know I can call Erin, and it's a different conversation now. But over the years, and you would just say, stop. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you really had a lot of wisdom. So you already kind of had that cultivated inside of you. Mm-hmm. And I remember when we first met, you were already aware of, Ayurvedic medicine and some other cool mindfulness stuff. And I was in my, and I'm going to say this, and I got to be really careful, because I do want to make sure people hear the truth of what I'm saying. I was kind of in my uber Christian phase.
You were.
Okay. And when I say uber Christian phase, what I mean about how I want to be careful how I say this. It's not about beliefs of religion that I want to get into in the conversation, but we did talk a lot about that, because you had some ideas and some ideologies and thoughts. And at the time when I say I was into this Uber, it was all about my ego. Mm-hmm. So I do know that we can get our egos entwined in our religious belief system to the point where we think what we believe is the truth about who we are. And so you and I had lots of conversations over the years, and there were times where I wasn't willing to let go of anything I believed.
True.
And Erin can witness that. And what I love about it was you never ever tried to proselytize or tell me I was wrong and that I needed to believe something different.
No.
I
did not.
No. And that's why I still hang out with you, because people need people like that in their lives, because otherwise you never colluded around the victimization. Like, you called me out on my shit, but you didn't tell me what to do with my shit.
No, because that's your journey. You got to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's what I think is really cool, that you already knew some of that.
Yeah. I did.
And then as we hang out still, we talk about what we each believe, what we know, what we don't know. But it's so much more. I thought about this when you were driving over this morning. I thought, it's so much freer to be on this side.
Yeah. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
I know. It took me a hot second. But you guys, what I mean by being on this side is letting go of, and I'm using different language. We never used words like, letting go of the bondage of others. But, now I would say words like, I really was in bondage to what everyone else thought about me, what I looked like, how I spoke, how I showed up, if I didn't believe what the masses or the groups we were in believed. And I think a few times I tried to take you down a few of those rabbit holes.
Sure.
And you just were like, no, this and your whole body would just be like in just a visceral no.
Yeah.
And you would like literally like, I cannot do this.
Right.
And so now being on this other side, and when I say that, you all, I mean, it is a freedom to be free of that narrative, that voice in your mind that just wants to create constant attacking and separation and judgment. And because I didn't know until I had my great kind of awakening that my ego wasn't who I was.
Right.
And so what I love about that is we've learned from each other's wisdom, but to be on the other side and go, yeah, it doesn't matter what anybody does anymore, because that inner knowingness that you said you've always been connected to, I finally got connected to her. Mm-hmm. And that's a really cool, liberating place.
Yeah.
And now sometimes we get to hang out and just drink wine and sit in silence and look at nature, and we don't even have to fill the space.
Yeah.
Who knew that day was coming?
I know, right?
Your husband never probably thought that was coming. Your husband was probably like, what? You mean Yedda just came over and sat there? Yeah.
Yeah, we just sat there and we were just quiet.
Yeah, there was no problem to solve. There was no drama. So if we talk about anything now, what we talk about is this work that I've been working on, the work that you work on. And I want you to tell the listeners a little bit about that. So your journey, you always kind of had that internal knowing, but you've had some life stories even as an adult that you've had to overcome. And so tell me like what you do now for a living. Obviously you're a mom and a wife, you said that, but you do some really cool stuff to help people in very similar ways as I do. So tell the listeners a little bit about that.
Sure. So, well, I do health coaching, and I mean, I will go all the way back. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer right about the time that we were becoming friends.
I think you had just finished your treatment.
Yeah. And so while I always was interested in diet and exercise, honestly, from a vanity standpoint.
I mean, we are body doubles.
Yeah,
we've talked about that.
We are. So it shifted my focus to disease prevention. And that was kind of an interesting, kind of in the beginning of our friendship, where I was the one talking about, nutrition and disease prevention and health, and you were talking about exercise and yeah.
Oh man, we just hit it off, and I was like, yes, we're going to figure out how to live together forever. I tried. It didn't.
Yeah.
She didn't want to live with me forever, you guys, but
it doesn't work.
No.
So I've just kind of have gone head first into sharing and coaching people around everything that I've learned and helping them. The outside, the physical appearance, I know it's something that is important to a lot of people, but I really am in a place where I just want to support and encourage women to just love themselves as they are, and to work on being just the most vibrant beings that they like.
It's that they already are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that knowingness that you've always been tapped into. You're just helping people find that and bring that, or women find that, and just because we've lost touch with that divine feminine voice.
Right. Bring that out. And so all of the how you're feeding yourself and the things that you're reading and eating and people that you're spending time with, it all of that impacts how you show up in the world. And so if you start with something as basic as, drinking a bunch of water, right? Or having a green smoothie every day. And then, you start to feel better and you have more energy, and all of those little pieces help you to show up and be that, the best version of yourself.
And you've always been really good at really creating psychological safety for people.
Yeah.
And so when we first met, you were recovering from cancer, getting into health and wellness more, nutrition, nutraceuticals, going into getting certified as a health coach, of course, being a mom. And so that natural nurturing and connected to your inner wisdom is what allows you to do the work that you do, because, we have to create a lot of safety when you're asking people to change their behaviors.
Yeah.
And you and I've talked about this. So that's one thing that we've had a lot in common over the years is, I was coming at it from kind of the health and fitness and corporate wellness and program design. And, you guys have seen a lot of that. The book starts with obviously health, because I didn't back then, though, connect all of our health behaviors were really due to our mindset and our ego's unwillingness to let go of control and let us just sit with the shit and the suffering and what was going on inside of us.
Right.
And so you've kind of always had that natural ability, but that psychological safety that you help people with, it's so funny because not only do you do the health coaching and are you a cancer survivor, and she's a mom of 3 amazing kids. I think your third was really supposed to be mine, but she decided to be yours, and that's fine. We call her Monkey. And so when you think about all these things that you offer people and you take care of people, what I also love is, you're also an organizer.
I am.
And I mean, seriously, you guys, you're not, I feel like I organize people's inner world in their mind, and you're really good at organizing people's life.
Yeah.
Like literally, like no lie, you guys, when I moved and I called Erin and I was like, okay, we got to pack everything. We got to purge the old house. You helped me walk through every room. Mm-hmm. So, and it's not just, the reason I'm bringing this up is it's not just about, health isn't just about food in and food out and calories and exercise. Health for you when you work with clients is about like all the things, your external environment is mirroring your internal. Your internal 100%. Is helping to create your external. And so when I moved, you came into the house, and no lie, you guys, Erin came in, her and my mom were there, and I trusted them implicitly. And the deal was we would go room by room, and you would pick up something and you would say, do you love it? And if the answer was, if I didn't give an immediate yes, it was either going to trash or it was going to donation. Mm-hmm. And you are really good at helping people clean up just clutter in general.
Yep.
But the reason I'm telling you guys this story, and it kind of does go into what we're going to talk about with the healthy self-expression, was I didn't realize the moment I was hanging on to stuff, what that, like clinging to the past or, dreaming about the future. So we went through every room in the house, and I literally only had a few boxes in the back that were all the things that when I looked at it, you guys, I said, I love it. And you were so great because you held me accountable. I'm like, well, you're like, nope, no, you don't. Out. But it was a safety that you created psychologically to let me tap into the healthiest version of me. And so, because what I know with this work is, and even in doing the shut up and sit work, those patterns and those programs, they'll always be there. Okay, if I were to say to you, I am never going to do a backflip out a window again while I'm texting and launching verbal grenades, we have a problem. I am aware that she's still there. Right. But I've learned how to show up in a healthy way to help her get her needs met in a different manner. So you do a really good job of holistically creating safe spaces for people so that they can be their healthiest person and version inside and out. Right. And why that was important is the new house that I'm in, and I'm not kidding you guys when I say this, Erin came in, cleaned out the whole house. Movers came, packed it all up. And then, of course, I bought new furniture, brand new house. And I literally did not unpack anything because you knew exactly where to put it. I'm talking my kitchen, my underwear drawer. I mean, it was all done. Yeah. Because you knew how somebody's mind would work in a healthy way to keep things organized and clean and spacious and appropriate and functional. Right. And literally, I remember we moved in a week. My mom helped, had some other people help. And your ability, I remember one night opening a drawer and I was like, I didn't unpack anything, but everything was exactly where it needed to be for it to be its most optimal experience. Right. And I remember calling you and I'm like, you should do this for a living. Like, you know what? And so now you are also doing work with clients, helping them on organizing all of their life. Yeah. And I love that for you because all the years that we talked and for folks listening and for folks watching, we try to conform and fit ourselves in to be the second-rate version of someone else. And you and I have experienced that in personal development. Yeah. And that was kind of me back to my Uber, like, if you don't believe what I believe, you don't have any worth or value or meaning. Right. And I look back and I think my ego was so confused. What I believe can still be my belief, but I don't need to run around and make people feel bad for the fact that they don't believe what I believe. Yeah. And that's something you've always been good at. It's a belief that you've held that I don't need to tell you. You'll figure it all out, right? Like you said, right. You're on your journey. Yeah. Yeah. So I bring that up because I want the listeners to hear, yes, it's work, but there's also that inner wisdom. It's inside of all of us. Mm-hmm.
It is.
Every one of us. And you've raised kids to learn to listen to that voice. Yeah. So from a parenting perspective, this whole shut up and sit idea, I thought I had a brilliant idea. You guys, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this shut up and sit and finding silence. And this is going to be great, Erin. And I'm going to pull in science and psychology and health. And she's sitting there and she's like, And I'm telling someone, it's like preaching to the choir, and you're like, okay, great, Yedda, go for it. And so you have done the work. You've read the book. She was one of the first people outside of my parents that I called and said, hey, would you like to do the book? Would you like to do the course? And so I'm curious, from your perspective, having mindfulness, having this inner wisdom already prevalent in your life, what was it like to go in and kind of look at the work and shut up and sit and really sit with and kind of go into that thinking about the world that we live in and the beliefs and kind of where people are with their own health, their belief systems, their own personal development. What was your experience? Because you came in already wise. You already had some knowledge. So I'm curious what your experience was as you went through the work in the book. Again, she doesn't know I'm asking this question, you guys, so she might say it sucked. I don't know. But I'm curious, coming from your perspective, where did the work land for you, and what value, if any, did you see for yourself and potentially for other people?
Well, I did enjoy it.
That was thoughtful.
I would not say that it sucks. I think there's a lot of value to it. It's like a really great book to just keep coming back to.
It's not a novel. I say that all the time. It's kind of like a college textbook that you go back to, or maybe even a manual.
Yeah, I don't like, so on my bedside table, there's just a few books that I keep there, that I just periodically go to and I open them up. I don't even plan like, I want to read a certain thing, right? I just open it up, and because wherever I open it, that's what I needed to read today, right? And I think that this is one of those books for me because while I do think that I am a very grounded, very mindful person, that doesn't mean that life doesn't throw a lot of curveballs, and it's messy, right? And we all get thrown out of whack. That's just the way it is. And the real success in this work is just knowing, wait a minute, I have a tool for this. I know how to handle this, and reminding yourself of that, and then coming back to your breath, coming back to your center. And so just opening it up and reading whatever it is just keeps, like I was saying, the things that you're reading, the things that you're watching, those are the things that your brain is going to think about more often. Yeah. And so it's just another way for me to keep myself in that place that I am on solid ground, so that when she calls me all crazy, I am able to handle it and gracefully.
But my crazy now is, I got a great idea. What about?
That is true. That is true.
And I still have a few moments here and there, and she's like, Usually by the end of our calls, if I am in a little stuck place, I talk myself out of it.
She does.
Or you give me a little redirection prompt, and so it's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
But Erin, I didn't know you had my book on your bedside table.
I do. I had to go find it and grab it before I had my coffee this morning.
You guys, that's really thoughtful. I had no idea. You never know what you're going to learn when you bring your best friend on a podcast.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
All right, so let's segue in then, because I do want to talk about these 8 tools for healthy self-expression. And again, I am an expressive person. That's no surprise to anybody that knows me.
True.
I've actually been doing this other course online, and it was about identifying your core 4 needs. No shocker, expression was on the top of the list for me. So I thought, well, that would make total sense. And I love being here on camera and on audio to express this work in a way that I hope anybody can just take nuggets, like you said.
Right.
You keep coming back to it. And so, the way my brain works, the way yours works, taking in lots of information, synthesizing it, putting it somewhere, you don't have to remember all of this.
No.
And that was one of the things you and I, as we kind of went into our own personal development, we were like, I remember thinking, God, the solution's got to be, isn't there like a comprehensive, like just place to come to for like the basics of how to master your mind?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's what I was looking for. So that's what the purpose of this is. So we've got 8 tools here for healthy self-expression. And it is at the end of chapter 3. Last episode, we talked about the 5 ways to get unstuck from past conditionings. Again, Erin's here to validate. I asked these questions. I'm like, how do you get unstuck? How do you show up in a healthy way? I mean, I did like a deep dive into the ethers of everything, intranet, outranet, acronet, whatever the nets were, fishnet. I mean, you name it. I was in the nets of everything. Like, where are the answers? And so actually I found there was this really great research that was done on 8 tools for healthy self-expression. And I thought they were so great. Everything's footnoted in the book, you guys. You should get a copy because it's got all the details and it's got all the credits and where you can learn more. So we're wrapping up chapter 3. And here's the first tool for healthy self-expression. Turn off the noises in your head.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, what? Turn off the noise in my head? So it's that simple. But how difficult is that really, Erin? Even you being a mindful person.
Oh, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. Which is, you just have to keep reminding yourself. Just keep coming back to your breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the breath is because it brings us back to this moment.
Yeah.
And in this moment, we get an opportunity to choose again.
Yeah.
Not in the past self, not in the future self.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I talk about in this first one is, and it says in the book, to mute negative self-talk, fear, doubt, and confusion. Would you speak to someone the way you talk to yourself? Mm-hmm. And so it's not just the noises in your head about, all the stuff you're taking in from TV and videos and music and, mm-hmm. friends and chaos or whatever you're consuming. It's the negative self-talk, the voice in the head. And I know, because you and I have talked about this and what you alluded to a minute ago with women, it's one of the reasons why you're so passionate about helping women really accept mm-hmm. who they are, because we have such a negative self-talk over our image physically.
It's so true.
And you do a great job. Your social media posts are always great. You put together a post recently I thought was brilliant, where she had one of those, side-by-side pictures before and after. And it was awesome. And she's like, what's the difference between these two pictures? And then at the bottom, she was like, absolutely nothing. And I thought, yes. And my comment was, the day of the bathroom selfie is dead, ladies. Yes. Stop it. Turn that shit off.
Yeah.
And I made a commitment to myself, and I have kept it, because you have seen me at the height of my vanity. Mm-hmm. No more selfies ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And you can go back for years on any of my social media feed. If there is a moment that I ever have to do this, then that tells me you are not headed down a path of healthy self-expression, because you are trying to show the world that you're something that you're not in this moment. And it's time for us to wake women up that it doesn't matter if we catch your cleavage, if we can see your ass in the bathroom mirror at the airport, which, hello, ladies, I've seen some of your shots. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And when we do that, having done that for myself, we're just trying to tell the world what we are unable to say to ourselves, mm-hmm. which is, I'm beautiful.
Yeah.
But I'm beautiful on the inside, not just on the outside. Because at 40, almost 49, and you're going to be how old this year?
51.
51. Yeah. So ladies, at halfway through your life, it's time for us to get real and say, we just need to accept who we are. And we need to start setting a new social norm that we don't need to raise any more women that think their self-worth is based upon their selfies.
Right. Yeah.
And I could give you the mic for the rest of the show on that one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And as a woman raising young women, I'm very aware of how I am showing up in my house, in my conversations with them. I'm aware of the conversations that we have in front of them.
Yep.
And I want to empower them and make them, I want them to have a different experience as young women than we did.
Yeah.
I think
because that's what creates a lot of our negative self-talk as women.
Yeah. And I talk to them about that as well. Like, what are you, what are you saying to yourself in this moment? Like, what is that story that you have running in your head? If I have a child that is falling apart over, something that is really not that big a deal, I know there's more happening up here. And just getting them to name that and say, would you say that to your best friend?
Yeah.
Would you say that to me? Would you say that to your sister? And if the answer is no, then you need to change what you're saying to yourself, because you should be treating yourself with the most compassion of anybody.
Yeah.
I said this to Sage recently. We were driving, and I can't even remember what we were talking about, but it was just about being in a place of judgment and judging other people. And how to kind of let go of that and to have compassion. And I said, just remember that every single person was a baby.
Yeah.
And think about how you feel about babies. Like, they're just the most amazing, beautiful, just cute.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they just make you feel all warm and gooey inside, right?
Yeah.
So every single person, they were somebody's baby at one point, and somebody felt that way about them. So each person is that amazing spirit. I was like, look at all those babies driving the cars, Sage. They're just so grown up. They can reach the feet, the steering wheel. Like, we're so proud of them,
visual,
right?
But doesn't it change everything? It puts us back in touch with the humanity of, because if you were looking, and it's why we start the book with that guided imagery of seeing yourself as an infant. Would you treat an infant the way you would?
Right.
And your girls, one's going into middle school, one's coming out, she's in high school. That's a tough age, because we are bitches to each other as middle school and high school girls. And you and I have spent a lot of time talking about this, and it does tie into that narrative. But the truth is, we are raised, and we raise our little girls with the whole Cinderella story. Mm-hmm. And so we are raised at a very young age, and we don't even realize it. It's an unconscious program that we have to compete against each other because we're going to get picked one day.
Yeah.
And I got to be better, and I got to look better, and I got to have better, because if I don't get picked, then someone's going to come along and pick Erin. And so there's this challenge that we run into as women. And the truth is, and I love that you're raising your girls this way, to see the humanity, to imagine everybody as little babies, even the little girls that are mean and in that competitive, nasty spirit. But it is true. And I have compassion for young women because we don't know better. We've all watched the stories of Cinderella. We've all been raised in the United States of America with body images and I know we got to get through the rest of these, and I'll add this piece. My son, when Brian Keith and I, when he graduated high school, I took my son, to Europe for 2 weeks. He had never left the States, and we did 2 weeks all through Zurich, through Germany, through Italy, Austria, all over the place. And he looked at me one day, and he goes, "We've got it all wrong at home." Mm. And I'm like, what do you mean, son? And he goes, the way we objectify women and sexuality at home is disgusting. Now, I've never talked to him about that. I never raised him with that. He had been to different saunas, which of course there are naked people everywhere in Europe. He saw all different types of body parts and pieces, the marketing, just the way they dressed, the way they treated each other. And he said, nobody here thinks being naked is bad, but also nobody here is using women's bodies to market anything. And they're certainly not objectifying women the way that we do at home. Mm. And I thought, what a gift for him. So he went into college. Thankfully, he was raised a great kid anyway. But genetically, he comes by some of that naturally. But I thought, what a great experience for him to go into college and be thinking about women like the way we're talking about women.
Yeah.
And so this space for us, this negative narrative, it applies to men and women, but we speak to it from a woman's point of view. And so if we can turn that...
women.
We are. So if we can turn that negative voice off in the head, that was the first one I came up with. And I'm like, but I did the research. I'm like, so we just first of all, got to stop the negative self-talk. Mm-hmm. Second is set boundaries for your emotions and needs. And I love this because it says stand for your yes and stand for your no. Mm-hmm. And what I had to learn, and you've seen me crash into a few of these walls, standing up for your yes and standing up for your no, right? She knows this. You don't need to go run around with a billboard of all your boundaries and tell everybody about how they're wrong, you're right. And I just can't do that because I cannot subject myself to your lower level of consciousness or your shitty, healthy behaviors. I went the other way, right? So then, I got into all this stuff, and then I did get into a few of the boundaries, and we know a few people like that still. And now being on the other side and just sitting back, I feel like I'm sitting next to you now in the front row of the theater. We're just eating our popcorn. I'm like, look at that. Oh, isn't that So we have a word now. And if you ever hang out with us or you see us in public and you hear us say this, our word is fascinating.
Fascinating.
And that is our way of witnessing.
Yep.
I mean, wow. Just witnessing and going, that is so fascinating. Mm-hmm. And we just know what that means. And that means, there's a lot of stuff going on right there. And when you're uber into setting your boundaries, so I want to be clear about this, when you set your boundaries for your emotions and your needs, you get to a point with mindfulness and shutting up and sitting down that you actually don't have to constantly verbalize them. No. You get to a point where you show up and you already are them. And then what happens is, like you said, you can gracefully exit yourself out. You can move in, you can be with. But when you're not afraid someone's going to take your worth, You don't have to set a boundary because they no longer are the definition of defining your worth.
No, because it's just who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't have to.
Well, think about that. When you show up and you already possess a belief system and you already are something, you don't run around and I don't walk in and go, I'm a brunette. Yeah. With white hair, or I'm 5'6", or
exactly.
It's like stating the obvious. People are like, okay, I see that. That would be really silly. Well, it's the same with your inner world. You don't need to run around telling people what you believe, because when you already are something, then you don't have to keep validating it. So I want to make sure that caveat's given, because you do have to set boundaries, but you get to the point where you are the yes and the no.
Yes.
And so moving right along. So number 3, this is a good one. Realize when it's not your story, claiming ownership and authorship of your own life story, not someone else's. And that's why it's in the book. It's a little bit further in, and I've touched on it a few times, but that shit doesn't have my name on it. I can't tell you the drama, and Erin knows over the years of what I've stepped into. And literally it's like stepping into a pile of steaming dog shit.
Stinky.
It's not my story.
No.
So I can take my hands off and be like, that's not my story. But I love that in the shutting up and sitting down and finding silence, you cultivate compassion to say, but I'll sit alongside of your story. I won't leave you, but I'm not getting in the hole with you. I won't pile more shit on top of you. You got your own to deal with.
Right.
And that's something as a friend that you've always been good at, is to literally just say, not my story, but I'll sit here with you.
Yeah.
And I won't leave you. And I promise you're going to be okay.
Right.
And that's a huge skill set as a human being, but also as a best friend. And by the way, Erin is not for hire, so already got the bestie label here. So you can't, she is for hire in her professional life, but you can't take her as your friend. So let's move on into 4, because I want to make sure we get through these before we wrap up. Okay. This one is fun. Lighten up and do what brings you joy. Get your happy back. Yeah. That was the part too, I think, in this journey of, you figure out stopping the negative tapes, being able to show up and be the healthy boundary and expression, knowing, hey, that's your story, not mine. So like we're containing, we're holding, you're in your place, I'm in mine. And then you're allowed to have fun, because you already are the joy you've been seeking.
Right.
Yeah. And we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And now it's fun to be like actually showing up and be like, wow, I had no idea all these years what I was missing when I was trying to synthesize joy and create all these fun experiences.
Right.
And now we do get to just hang out, because we're both like, hey, the joy's already in here. So no one's coming to give it to us, and no one's coming to take it away.
Right.
Now, it doesn't help or hinder, I should say, that sometimes there's a little sparkly bottle of some effervescence happening when we're in our joy. Yeah. But, that's what I want to give people permission to. So when we get into knowing that we're using certain mechanisms to numb our pain, which alcohol, and I did that for a long time, you witnessed me do that, and we use a unhealthy habit to manage our inner world, I'm not saying that everybody has to go to the other end of the extreme and get completely sober and go a whole different direction. What I love now is we still get to come together and be friends, and we're in a place of joy. And if we do decide that we're going to have a glass or 2 of wine, or we're going to participate in an activity, it stems from the joy we already have. So we don't need excess of anything to make it even better.
Exactly.
We're really just doing it because we're in the joy already.
Yeah.
And isn't that funny? That's what the word enjoy means. Think about that. Oh, I'm enjoying myself because I'm in joy.
I'm in joy.
Yeah. So, all right, let's wrap up these last couple. And Robin's given us the hand sign, so we gotta keep moving. He keeps us on track, and I should have told him it wasn't going to happen with you and I today. Okay, so let me roll into 5 so we can carry these to the mountaintop. So remember, your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are always choices. No one is to blame for your circumstances. You can choose how to create your reality. So say goodbye to being a victim. Reading it right out of the book. I've already touched on that. We just don't, we're not victims. We do get to choose as adults how we're going to show up. Yes, as adults.
Yes.
And even those of us who've experienced trauma and dysfunction and abuse, I'm not negating the pain, but I am saying it is possible to look at the story and to have another way that you could release the old story and then learn to show up and write a new story. But it requires going within and talking to that wounded part of yourself and loving her or him, connecting with and having support to really, really take a space where you can move into, I do have a choice. And you're good at teaching people that. Yeah.
And it's not an overnight thing, that is a process.
Yeah.
But it is, it's totally doable.
Yeah. And I can tell you that because I'm living proof, and you do it for a living every day.
Yeah.
So number 6, understanding commas versus periods. I thought this was a good one.
I like that one.
So we put a period at the end of it and we're like, that's the end of that.
Yeah.
And the truth is everything in life, it's just a comma. It's really not that serious. And you know what? The rest of the story's not done.
Right.
And don't we live our life thinking like the period is the finality?
Well, it's kind of like as soon as you say, I will never do that.
Absolutely.
That's
the cognitive
the fastest
distortion
way to do it.
Yeah.
Like that's going to happen.
Yeah. And the comma is what places the breath and which says, hey, the story is still being written. And, I think this is really funny because when I was in Greece for a retreat pre-COVID, there was a woman there from Britain and we were playing this game one night. And so she was saying something about, it was the language, we were all, of course, Americans and she was British. And I said something and I said, and then it has a period at the end. And she looked at me and she goes, that's not what we call it. And I'm like, well, what do you call it? And so she was talking about in the language of she goes, a period is what a woman gets. It's not how we end a sentence. And I'm like, holy shit. So we're trying to play a board game. And in her meaning making, she's like, what? And she's like, it's a dot at the end of a sentence. And so she was explaining just the power of narrative of language. Wow. And I thought, isn't that true about that comma, right? And so what is it? So the breath, the comma is just keep moving. It's not perfect. It's not permanent. It's not personal. Yeah. Put the comma at the end of your day or at the end of the sentence and let the rest, unveil itself.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got just a couple more here. And you've kind of touched on this one. Number 7 was express yourself in a healthy manner, not just to impress your point of view or to get others to do what you want. So you're just expressing health to be health, not to manipulate other people.
Correct.
And you probably know a few people in our lifetime who have used that, myself included, that I was going to be healthy because I was going to impress everybody with how healthy I was.
Yes.
Yeah. And that doesn't get people very far because it just manipulates. And then you're still stuck in the doing.
Well, and you're not in a place of trying to help other people.
No. Because it's still all about you.
It's your ego. You're like, look at me. Look how great I am. So healthy. Yeah. So perfect.
Do that again.
Look at my abs. Yeah. That's
all right. Robin's given us the last wrap it up sign. So I've got 2 more for you. All right. Number 8, get creative. Another reason why you and I are friends. I mean, oh my gosh, I love a glue gun, a hot glue gun, and some popsicle sticks and all kinds of crafty stuff. And I love that I can call you and I'm like, so I got this idea. And you're like, I'll be right over.
Oh, yeah.
And so the creativity opens up the right part of the brain. It opens up all these other portals and opportunities. So how do you use creativity in your home and in your work that helps people get healthy?
Well, I have no idea. I think that I encourage people to kind of step outside of their box and look at things from a fresh lens. I definitely, I love creative things.
And it's so funny, and I know you're not really struggling with the question, but it's such an oxymoron when you ask people who are super creative about creativity. It's kind of like, well, but it's already who I am. So how do I explain to you? Because doesn't everybody do that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's kind of like, how do you coach somebody, Erin? I'm like, I don't know. I just do it.
Yeah.
It's just a knowing. We certainly in my house do a lot of drawing and painting. I've just started crafting.
Oh God, she knits. I forgot you guys. I'm so sorry.
I just started to teach myself how to crochet. It's been kind of fun.
I walk in and I see the little, and I'm like, oh, I'll come back later.
I think I like the crocheting more than the knitting.
Oh God, Erin,
it's
we
faster.
Might have to break
it's faster.
Up. Really?
Yeah.
It's the watching your hands move that drives me up the wall.
Oh, I don't have to watch. That's the thing. When I knit, I have to pay attention really closely. But with the crochet, I can do too. I can listen to you and talk to you and do it at the same time. It's good.
Well, thankfully that's the last one because I was just looking. I was like, I'm like, oh, she's giving me anaphylactic shock thinking about the things that happen when I watch.
Her face is going to get really red.
Yeah, that's when mine gets red. Put me in prison and give me crochet needles in a trailer in West Virginia somewhere. And I don't say that as a negative. I grew up with family in trailers in West Virginia, y'all. So I know that place. So those are our 8 tools for healthy self-expression. I had to go learn them. I I had to research them. And I'm like, oh, Erin, did you know? Boom, boom, boom. You've got to turn off the noise in your head. You got to set boundaries. You got to realize when it's not your story. Lighten up, have joy, right? Do joy. Remember, thinking, feeling, behaving. You get to choose. Commas, no periods, and expressing yourself in a healthy manner. And hey, by the way, get creative. And you were like, I mean, that's how you live life. But I love that we're on the show and we're together so that the viewers and our listeners can understand we all need the mindfulness work. Right. We all need to shut up and sit. We all need to practice and cultivate going within and sitting with that knowingness, which and I know speaks to us in silence. It's not an audible narrative voice in our head. Mm-hmm. And so you've been on this journey the entire time from the ugliness. I mean, literally you met me. We both met right after we both got married. And so, over 20 years of friendship, seeing the highs and lows, the ins and outs, the ups and downs. And I'm excited because I do think people all over the world need to understand how that inner world works.
Yes.
If anybody had a question and needed a solution, it was me. And that's why I created this work was there's no comprehensive kind of place to just, like you said, refer to like, oh shit, what do I do when? Mm-hmm. And I still refer to this. Mm-hmm. Now, the beauty of shutting up and sitting is you go within and you start to rewire these patterns and beliefs. They become a little bit more automatic. The automaticity kicks in. And then you guys have heard me say you're standing in line and then you're more kind or you're more loving or you're more open to your friend who tells you she's now started crocheting, whatever, what's the word?
Crochet.
Whatever it is. I can't even say it. And so you don't get triggered by that because she's not going to force it on you. So it's fun to just be here today with you and chat with it all. And do you have any last words of wisdoms for our visitors? Because I want to close it with a really cool kind of poem and reading that I think is totally perfect for us. But I'm really curious as you leave our listeners, we've talked about your story. We've talked about the healthy tools for self-expression, the power of shutting up and sitting. What do you want to leave our listeners with? Silence.
Yeah, silence.
You can leave them with some silence.
Yeah, silence. I think just remembering that you have the tools inside you to find that peace and trust yourself.
Yeah.
Trust yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's perfect because here's the reading. And so, poetry is all throughout my book because I love poetry. I love right brain stuff. And poetry is probably...
I don't.
No, she doesn't. Poetry is one of my favorites. But I wanted to share a reading that I thought was so appropriate given our friendship and given what you've seen over the years. But the title of the poem, it's literally from a book that says, I Heard God Laughing. It's Poems of Hope and Joy by Hafez, who's one of my favorite. And it is my mindfulness practice. I know you're into meditation and yoga, and you don't have to be in poetry. That's cool. You can crochet.
I was going to say,
and I read poetry.
And this is a boundary that we have.
And I read poetry.
She reads poetry, and then we can do it together.
Here's the title of the poem, and I want to leave you guys with this because I thought this was perfect for us and for our episode today. You don't have to act crazy anymore. Literally, no lie. That's the name of the poem. It's the title. You don't have to act crazy anymore. Here's the poem. You don't have to act crazy anymore. We all know you are good at that. Now retire, my dear, from all that hard work you do of bringing pain to your sweet eyes and heart. Look in a clear mirror, see the beautiful ancient warrior and the divine elements you always carry inside that infused this universe with sacred life so long ago and join you eternally with all of existence. And I love that because I read that and Erin's over there just like, and I'm like, I don't have to act crazy anymore. It's really already inside. Yeah. So she said it point blank, trust yourself. And I'm like, you don't have to act crazy anymore. And if you do it because you're having fun and you're with your bestie.
Right.
So bestie, thanks so much for coming to hang out down at the Mindfulness Bar and do some silence and bring some wisdom. We got lots of fun stuff ahead and I can't wait to bring you back on the show soon.
I'm excited.
Until next time, you guys, it's been Yedda with my bestie, Erin, and we'll see you on another show down the road.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.
May you know goodness. May you know peace. May you know contentment. May you be